hello, good evening, and greetings from the city of Bhavnagar. I thank all the organizers for giving me this opportunity to present myself. And I really say sorry because there was some technical problem and I could not connect. So I will be talking on anterior midline approach for proximal tibia. If you see 360-degree dissection of the proximal tibia, probably I'll start at 0 degree longitude. That will be anterior midline approach. So you have a case like this. The patient has been operated with this dual incision. You know the blood supply in the skin of the anterior region is predominantly from medial to the lateral area. And then after two approaches, the blood supply between these two incisions gets interrupted. Now, if you want to go for a TKR and the patient develops arthritis, probably the third incision for knee arthroplasty could result in necrosis of the flaps between the incision. Whereas if you have such a case where an anterior midline approach has been taken and the patient, elderly gentleman, if he requires arthroplasty in near future, probably the things would be easy. The things would heal well. So anterior midline approach, there is better visualization of the plateau fracture geometry, and there is fracture reduction, accuracy of the fracture reduction. The direct assessment of the chondral surface, meniscus, and cruciate ligaments. No neurovascular risk. Same incision used for TKR that we have already discussed. Less need for fluoroscopy, and you have option for two plates on either side. There are very good articles and few papers from South Korea. They have described this as a viable treatment for Schatzker type 5 and 6 tibial plateau fractures. And another from Europe, where they've used a extensile anterior approach for central depression, ACL avulsion, and tibial spine fractures. Along with the proximal tibia fractures, they have also, through this approach, done an open reduction. So mainly I will be discussing these four indications: Schatzker type 5 and 6 fractures, but not much of a posterior combination, posterior involvement. Then useful to treat the depressed central fragment, tibial spine fracture, and cruciate ligament avulsion, and hyperextension bicondylar tibial plateau fractures. Probably this is the best approach where you can approach these fractures. And floating knee injuries, that is actually a relative indication. So, but there are limitations. You have a limitation of placing a posterior plate. And initially there were increased rate of infection and skin necrosis. But the recent studies, we have just compared these three studies, where two studies shows that there's no infection and no wound problem with the anterior approach. Whereas with the dual approach, it is 8.4%. This is due to the good result because there is delayed timing of surgery and use of temporary spanning fixator. So you have better assessment of the soft tissue. And once the soft tissue heal, probably after 10 days, if you go for this, you don't have much complications or infection or skin necrosis. As you can see, this patient, this has a posterior apex, and you cannot do anterior midline approach in this fracture. And this has to be done by a dual approach, as already discussed. As you see, initially there were a lot of problems of skin necrosis. And once the bone gets exposed, it is dead. No flap can cover the bone. And you require resection of the bone, and you have to go for Alizaro. But if you see this case, you study the CT properly, there's a large medial fragment, medial condyle, and there's a lateral depression with a central fragment. So this can be better assessed with anterior midline approach. And this is the stepwise how we do it. Just from the patella, you go straight, be little lateral to the tibial tuberosity, and just follow the sheen of the tibia. And then you raise a thick flap. Don't undermine the skin. You have to raise the lateral flap and the medial flap. And after that, you have these landmarks. That's the patellar tendon, the medial collateral ligament, that's the IT band, tibial tuberosity, and the shaft of the tibia. This is the exposure which you get. And you need to know your limitations. Just be anterior to the tibial collateral ligament and fibular head. You cannot go behind that. So your all dissection will be in this limit only. And then the first step, you go medially. And just below the pes ancillaris, you fill the posterior medial border of the tibia and remove any soft tissue or any periosteum which is interposed in between the fracture fragments. And then you reduce it first. That is the first step. You reduce with the ball spike clamp that what Dr. Vijay sir was just discussing. And once you have done that, you just fix with temporary K wires. And after that, you go for the articular reduction. And articular reduction also use another clamp. And then just temporarily fix with the K wires. And then your option, but I would always go for a medial plate first. And there can be some tips and tricks. You can do anterolateral arthrotomy if it is required, or submeniscal arthrotomy, submeniscectomy, or you can just go medially also. In medially also you can do arthrotomy. And you can use these step incisions just to put the posterior screw. And these are the intraoperative pictures. This is what how it looks, and then you can close the wound over a drain. So we were discussing this case. The case has been just reduced like this, and then you have this sort of fixation. And always you compare the medial plateau-tibial angle and the posterior tibial slope that you have to compare, and it is normal here. So this is a beautiful healing. You can see the result, and that's the video. You can see the patient is walking nicely. But then you have some situations, which is a high energy medial shear fracture, where there's central depression, the lateral meniscus has been interposed, and this is a fracture dislocation. And again, this is a very recent paper. This is, I think, in 2020, May 2020, where they have said that anterior midline incision is safe and effective approach for high energy medial shear fractures of the tibial plateau. And here, Perry has described in 1982 an extensive midline approach, and we can see that the patient is in supine position with 90 degree of flexion. Then you incise the subcutaneous tissue and muscle fascia as a whole, and you take a parapatellar incision, and then you identify this structure. So that's the transverse intermeniscal ligament. This is besides the ACL. You elevate the anterior horn of meniscus. The meniscus capsule and the periosteum is lifted, and the patella retracted laterally. And after do 90 degree of flexion, you get the whole exposure of the tibial plateau. And you can see the chondral structures, the ligament, the depressed fragments, the aversion fracture, and accordingly you can treat that. And another approach now is described is the medial epicondyle osteotomy, probably in that, but you don't get this exposure in that approach. And then you can close the wound. And you can see through this approach, the same thing has been, how beautifully the central depression has been reduced. You get a beautiful healing of the wound. That's the final result. And that's the video. Sorry, the video is not playing. Okay, it's playing. Another patient. This patient actually, it was before 15 years when there was no CT scan in my town, and I could not do a CT scan, but I just took lateral X-rays and the oblique X-rays. And this is a very bad, nasty injury. And there you can see that the ACL also is involved, and the tibial spine is fractured. So this is what we had done. Through the midline approach, we get a window, we did a lateral arthrotomy. Through that, we could just find out where the tibial spine fracture was. And through the pull-out stitches to the bone, we could pull that ACL fragment, ACL eversion to the bone. And you can see the beautiful healing at 1 year. The patient is comfortable, the wound is healed well. But then you have a patient like this. If you see, there's a central depression, the lateral plateau is depressed, and there's a big void. And this is a beautiful instrument, and Dr. Kashyap has devised this instrument, and he has popularized this instrument. So you can take the peg graph from the distal end of the femur, and this peg graph just takes hardly 5 minutes. And these peg graphs can be inserted into the void, and then you can see the patient, beautiful healing. In proximal tibia, always use 2 plates when there is a combination, because a single plate is not going to give the results. This plate has failed. So then we had to be revised by another plate and bone grafting. So such a bad injury, but treated with, this was just before 15 years. So no CT, and we had used the conventional plates. But you can see a very good result. This patient also, we had used conventional plates, but now with these modern plates, you can use a small plate on the medial side. This patient, if you assess this from the X-ray itself, you know that there's a large medial condyle. And the thing which I was describing is you go through a midline approach, you reduce the medial part first, and then everything will fall into place. And this is what has been done. And if you feel that the medial plate doesn't give much support to the posteromedial side, this is a kickstand screw. And you can add other screw just from outside the plate. So these 2 screws, if they go from anterolateral to the posteromedial direction, it will give enough support to the posteromedial side, because it is a single piece. There is no coronal split or no coronal fracture. Another patient, this was operated, and you can see that the tibial tuberosity fracture has to be put into place. This fracture, the patient comes around at 10 o'clock in the morning, and then you have a window period of 4 to 6 hours, and you can take this patient directly to the OT. This patient was operated within 4 to 6 hours, and you can see once you reduce the fracture, you equip the hematoma, you put the protruding pieces into place, and you can just fix it. So this was done within 6 hours, and everything had healed well. This patient compound grade 2 fracture. Again, this patient also, if it comes in the OPD hours and you can end the OT in the afternoon, you should take it within 6 hours. And the small plate and a larger plate, but you can see that a beautiful anatomic reconstruction and no problem with the healing. This patient also, when there's a large fragment, put a large plate on the medial side where the large fragment is there, and a smaller plate on the lateral side. This was in August 2011. At that time, we had to give just STP traction for 7 days and then operate. But now in July 2020, as Sir was discussing, you span, scan, and plane. So the first is, I just put the external fixator emergency term in my OT. So this patient comes, we first put external fixator. This is what is done. And now we advocate putting the fixator anteriorly, so that in somewhat of 10 degree of flexion, and dissect the fracture, and nothing else is to be required, and let the patient go home the second day. So the economically also, it will be cheap to the patient. They can go home, they can come after 10 days. You get a CT scan meanwhile, and from the CT scan, you know where the fragments are and from where you want to approach and where you want to attack first. And you can see that this patient has been operated with this dual plate. The beautiful healing, and at 3 months, the things are going well. This patient, actually, there is a lot of crushing of the bone. There is metaphyseal extension, and he develops a lot of blisters. So our principle to put the fixator would be, you just identify the zone of injury, the zone where your definitive fixation would come, and then put your pins away from that area. For this, you have to put your pins just away from the suprapatellar pouch and away distally where your plate would end. So you put a fixator like that. Initially, we used to put this fixator in this plane, but now we have changed to the anterior fixator. And here no fasciotomy was done, but still the wound had healed within 14 days. And then there's the second stage fixation, which was done after 14 days. And you can see the healed blisters, and at 1 year follow-up, everything has healed well, no skin problems. So this patient, there is extensive contusion of the skin, lot of blisters, and this patient would require a fasciotomy because the compartment was an impending compartment, and the compartment not established, but we would do a prophylactic release of the lateral side. So you know the knowledge about the compartments. These are the 4 compartments: anterior, lateral, then the deep posterior and superficial posterior, and you require 2 incisions, the anterolateral and the posteromedial. But in this case, you can go through just one approach, that's the parafibular dermatofasciotomy, and just go little posterior to the fibula, and you can release all the 4 compartments and just leave the skin like that. And after a few days, if you feel, you can do a skin graft. And this is what was done. And just you can wait. This may take about a long time. It may take about 3 weeks, but within 3 weeks, you should go for a definitive fixation. Otherwise, the pin tracks start getting infected. So this was operated after 18 days. And you can see that everything is healed, and the skin graft has also taken up very well. This patient, a very bad injury, so a prophylactically lateral fasciotomy was done, and you can see there's an anterior wound. So what we planned is after a few days we could close the wound. So while you go for the second operation, there's no serious discharge, and give some time. And since there's the anterior wound, we decided not to go for an anterior midline approach, and we fixed this fracture, and then we had gone for the anterolateral and the posteromedial approach. And you can see that even that wound, which was there over the tibial tuberosity, that has healed very well. So we have discussed these few indications. Now we would be discussing hyperextension injuries and the floating knee injuries. So this is a floating knee injury, and this patient has to be operated urgently. So we started with the femur, and then the femur was operated in time within, I think, 1 or 2 hours. It was complete. And then we just went there and extended the approach, and anterior midline approach was taken. And you can see that things have healed well. This is a recent article in 2019, and uh, when there's this bicondylar hyperextension injury, probably this fracture, this midline approach, you can approach the fracture, you can have a proper assessment of the fracture, and it gives the best exposure. This is from the literature. There they have done a tibial tuberosity osteotomy, and once you just flip off the tibial tuberosity, everything is in front of you. But the extension injuries may require a bone graft, and then it has been fixed with 2 plates. But this is just from the literature. This is my case. This is a hyperextension injury, and you can see that everything is in front. There is nothing posteriorly. Here the patellar tendon was also torn, but there are a lot of ecchymosis around the infrapatellar region and tense skin. So temporary external fixator is always the best option. So waited for 10 days, and then we went for a midline approach. And this is how we approach it. This you can see that we put these 2 plates, and just with Ethibond sutures, we could suture the torn patellar tendon to the plate and the bone. And then you can see the posterior tibial slope angle and the medial platotibial angle has been restored well. And you see that the kickstand screw is providing proper support to the posteromedial side also. And then again supported by the medial plate. This patient, a very interesting story. He's a 22 years old male, and he just got engaged, and just he was returning from his engagement ceremony, and he had this fracture. So looking to this deformity, the relatives are very much worried. The more worried were his in-laws. I just took a traction view, and then through a midline approach, I did this. And you can see excellent result. And then after 1 year, the relatives, they came to me, he was married, and they were very happy. He said that now he doesn't have any deformity. He's walking nicely, and thank you. Points to remember: good results with delayed timing of surgery and use of temporary spanning external fixator. Must lift the subdermal tissues and muscle fascia as a whole. The parapatellar arthrotomy can be useful to treat depressed central fragments, we have already discussed, and tibial spine fractures and cruciate ligament avulsions. And we could conclude that simple and familiar for orthopedic surgeons. We all are doing TKR now, and it is very, very simple to all of us. Offers good visualization and simplifies reduction. Provides a functional scar if necessary, procedures necessary, if functional scar, if further procedures necessary. But you have to assess the CT scan, the skin condition, and then only you can plan this approach. Otherwise, whatever has been discussed, you should go for those approaches. And there's limitation of putting a posterior plate. Thank you.